Is there a sex toy you love enough that you'd get it tattooed on you? This is a question I used to ask myself a lot. Sex toys had been a really important part of my personal growth, my sex life, and even my career. Why shouldn't I get one tattooed on me? The problem was choosing which one to get. Some of my favorite dildos would be recognizable on sight to sex toy geeks like the Enjoy 11 or Fucking Sculpture's Double Trouble, if you know, you know. I thought about getting a few of my faves tattooed on me, arranged together like a beautiful bouquet of phallic flowers. But the more that I thought about it, the more I realized I wanted a tattoo of a toy that was even more iconic, even more widely recognizable. It had to be timeless enough in appearance that it wouldn't look dated decades down the line. It had to symbolize the things I wanted my new tattoo to symbolize: self-love, self-empowerment, and a reminder of the importance of pleasure. It had to be the magic wand. I took the idea to my favorite tattoo artist, Laura Blaney, who had done several pieces for me already, including the cute pink bows on the backs of my thighs that say, "Good Girl." So I knew she was chill about me being a perverted weirdo and wanting sexy, kinky ink on my body. I also knew I wanted the wand to be surrounded by flowers, and floral designs are one of Laura's specialties. It took 2 sessions, totaling 8.5 hours, but now there's a huge magic wand on my thigh, framed by pink roses and yellow daffodils. The process of getting it was by far more time-consuming, expensive, and painful than any of my other tattoos, which are smaller, but it makes me happy every time I see it. So I think I'm qualified to say that the magic wand is a meaningful symbol for many people, not just in life, but in art. And in this episode, we're going to talk about why that is and how it's manifested in breathtaking art projects across countless mediums. I'm Kate Sloan, and this is Making Magic: How the Magic Wand Became the World's Most Famous Vibrator.
It's a really iconic toy, and I mean, it's a toy that I personally love, but also I think it really represents this kind of like idealized view of pleasure, of like this kind of feminist, like, oh, we're taking pleasure back for ourselves, like, et cetera, et cetera.
Here's Addison Finch, a tattoo artist and illustrator. I first heard about him because he'd done art for a lot of sex toy companies like Uberime and Funkit Toys. That's why I asked him to do the art for this podcast, actually. I love his work so much that I could think of no one better for the job. We have a fair bit in common. We're both Canadian sex nerds, we both love the magic wand, and we've both been salespeople at sex shops before.
I started that job already just being a sex nerd and being hyped about all the products and all the things that I was like, you don't even have to train me. Like, I already know all the shit about all of these things. And when I started working there, we had like a 3-month period where we were getting the lay of the land and, you know, seeing how the shop worked, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of that 3 months, when we were like kind of an official employee, we got to get our employee discount, which was 50% off. And so those whole 3 months, I was like, because the magic wand rechargeable was like kind of a new thing at that point, and I was like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready for it.
When I first started working on this series over a year ago, I bought a blue notebook to keep all my Making Magic related notes in, and I started collecting magic wand stickers from various artists that I would decorate the cover with. One of my faves is a sticker of Addison's, of a fun, cartoony wand captioned with the words "Good Vibes."
So I've done this sticker, you know, the Good Vibes Magic Wand sticker, and it's interesting, like at art markets and stuff, sometimes the folks are just like, they're buying it because they're like, ooh, I like what it represents. Like the idea that it represents, you know, that I'm a sexually empowered person, that I ask for what I want, you know, that kind of stuff. I'll talk to people about like, tell me your thoughts about the magic wand, because like I love it. I've yet to get to do a magic wand tattoo.
Addison told me he's done what are called flash tattoos of the wand, which are where a client picks something from a book or sheet of pre-existing designs that the artist has drawn and gets it tattooed as is. But he hasn't yet gotten to do a piece of custom magic wand art for a tattooing client.
A lot of people comment on like, oh, that's so cute, I love that. Like, they're willing to get a sticker, but they're not willing to like tattoo it on their body forever.
It's honestly understandable that most people wouldn't get a tattoo of a vibrator, even one they happen to love. I mean, I've been making media about sex pretty successfully for over a decade, and I still wonder sometimes, what if I have to leave it all behind and try to get an office job someday, and no one will hire me because of my raunchy tattoos? I'm not the only tattooed person who worries about this, but Some people actually see it as a positive thing that their tattoos will get them excluded from certain conservative environments. When I spoke to Carly S., a pleasure educator who does product management for the sex shop Spectrum Boutique, she taught me the term for this phenomenon.
Yeah, when I was working at the sex shop in Manhattan, I decided to get my knuckles tattooed because I was like, I'm going to get job enders, which is what they call knuckle and like neck tattoos.
The drummer from Blink-182, Travis Barker, similarly got what he calls job stoppers early in his career, a bunch of tattoos in very visible places that would make it hard for him to find conventional employment, quote, so I had no other choice than to do what I absolutely loved.
I see it more as a commitment to like being myself and not muting myself for anybody, because like the knuckle tattoos are something that I can't hide no matter what. Like I can put on a long sleeve shirt and hide all the other tattoos, but like I can't hide the knuckle tattoos. They're out even in the winter. So like people know I'm a weirdo all year long. I was like, I'm gonna be real special and not get letters. I'm gonna get all these like different cute little symbols or whatever that I just enjoy. So I got like an anchor, cherries, a pizza, and like all these just cute things that I, had different meanings to me. And of course I got the magic wand on my middle finger because so, you can go fuck yourself.
Carly was the only person I spoke to for this series who also had a magic wand tattoo. So I was interested to hear from her about how people have reacted to it. One of my biggest fears when I got mine was that it could lead to an uptick in sexual harassment or slut-shaming. But so far, people have been surprisingly cool about it. Carly told me her experiences have been similarly positive.
No, people are always just really into like when they notice that it's a magic wand. People are always just like think I'm really cool, and I just think that's funny because I was always like really bullied in school. So I'm like, yeah, I'm cool now because I have this like unusual tattoo. So it's just a commitment to like, fully actualization of Carly and like who I am and being tattooed and being like a queer femme person and who I am.
I'm a queer femme myself, and I feel the same way about my magic wand tattoo, that it represents a lot of the things I like best about myself, including my queerness, for reasons we'll get into in a lot more detail in the next episode. But one thing I like about the magic wand is that you don't have to be a sexual minority or a sex industry insider to recognize it. Addison put it like this.
It's cool to me that it is it has gone far beyond just like queer folks and sex nerds. Like pretty much anybody's like mom knows about the magic wand. And I think that that's very powerful and very successful.
I've seen a wild amount of magic wand-related art over the years. I've seen it rendered in watercolor, stained glass, and ceramic. I've seen it depicted in stickers, pins, and patches. I've seen photos of the transcendent sculpture that the artist Daphne Blade assembled from over 100 decommissioned wands. There is way more magic wand art out there than you can even imagine. And this makes sense, given that the woman who made the magic wand famous, Betty Dodson, was herself an artist. I got to see some of her work displayed at the Museum of Sex the year after she died, in an exhibit called Bad, Betty A. Dodson and the Liberation of Masturbation, a tribute. There was sumptuous erotic art everywhere. Sketches of lingerie, elaborate self-portraits, and intricate paintings of genitalia so mystical they looked like they belonged on the ceiling of a chapel. But one of the most striking pieces was a simple drawing entitled Virgin Priestess, of a woman sitting cross-legged atop a meditation pillow, holding a magic wand between her hands and pressing it against her vulva. Her expression is calm and contemplative, with the slightest hint of a Mona Lisa smile. She looks happy and self-empowered, which is exactly how Betty taught so many women to feel. In a statement hung on the wall at the exhibit, Betty's best friend and business partner, Carlin Ross, wrote that Betty had taught her, quote, that things can be that simple. You can create any life that you want. All you have to do is form the image. That's exactly what so much sex toy-related art does. It forms an image of a sex-positive, pleasurable existence and invites the viewer to step into that life too. When I started planning this episode about magic wand art, I was surprised to discover that someone else had already done something similar.
I'm Lorrae. I'm the founder of Slutty Girl Problems and a sex, dating, and relationship coach.
Lorrae hosts a podcast called The Pleasure Provocateur, in which she's highlighted and interviewed a bunch of artists who've made work relating to the magic wand, from ceramicists to cartoonists to jewelry artisans. I was curious how she came to be so interested in the wand.
I think I saw a magic wand for the first time in porn, and I remember being like too young to watch porn and coming across BDSM porn, and I was like, okay, new kink unlocked, even though I didn't even know what was going on. And it was the like orgasm torture BDSM porn, and I was like, what is going on? Like, this is possible? And I remember when I started to masturbate being like, all right, I'm not getting anything close to like this eye rolling, drooling, out of body experience that I saw. But yeah, the more that I learned about my body and of course got my own magic wand, I definitely understand now what's happening when you see those in videos. But yeah, it was like, that definitely is seared into my mind as a canon event that both prompted my kink for BDSM and also just being really curious about pleasure and kind of the limits that we can bring our body to through sex and pleasure.
Can you tell me how that enthusiasm for the wand turned into making a series where you interview artists about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was so fascinated by the way that our pleasure informs our art and how our art informs our pleasure, and really the interplay of sex positivity and media and culture, and how all of these things are coming together in conversation to empower us, inspire us, and give us community. Art is such a powerful medium to connect and feel seen, and for others who are seeing and consuming the art to feel like they're understood and that they're seen and that they have community. The magic wand really stood out as an icon because so much imagery, whether you're on Etsy or TikTok, Art Talk, or even just sex positive artists on Instagram, is incorporating this over and over again as earrings and cookie cutters and pipes, tarot cards. There's so many artists that are infusing this, and it's become this symbol of pleasure where even if somebody didn't know exactly what the brand name is, it's kind of transcended the actual functionality of the toy to be this instantly recognizable symbol of sexual expression and empowerment.
There's this phrase I like, beacon of permission, which was coined by the speaker and writer Kate Kenfield. To be a beacon of permission is to be like a lighthouse, broadcasting your unabashed truth to the world, so that even people who feel lost in the darkness because they think they can't be open about who they are can look at what you're doing and think, hey, maybe it's okay for me to live my truth too. An interesting thing about wearing my favorite Museum of Sex t-shirt or having a pride flag sticker on my laptop or, yes, having a giant magic wand tattoo on my thigh is that people can look at me in public and recognize instantly that I have a relaxed and non-judgmental attitude about sexuality. Usually the effects of this are subtle. I might notice a bartender or sales clerk smiling knowingly when they spot a cute dildo pin on my lapel. But sometimes the results are more overt. Like the time a barista at my local cafe saw I was wearing a leather collar and took me aside after I paid for my coffee to ask for my advice on a dominant she'd been dating who wasn't treating her very well. These types of conversations are super important, and for all I know, I was the only one she felt comfortable talking to about these problems in her relationship. And all because my collar visually identified me as kinky, and thereby made me into a beacon of permission. The magic wand can be an effective symbol of that kind too, whether there's one poking out of your bag, one emblazoned on your shirt, or even a couple of little wands hanging from your ears.
One of the artists that we connected with created earrings and loved that she could walk into a party and it would spark conversation about pleasure. And then she was weaving those conversations towards consent and affirmative consent, enthusiastic consent, and just these larger conversations that it was the doorway in to not only say like, I'm a sex positive person, but if you're going to talk to me about it, I'm also going to educate you.
One of the people Lorrae interviewed in her series was Frank Lawrence, an artist and graphic designer who's working on a tarot deck called the Vibrating Tarot, in which every card features sex products of various kinds. Instead of the traditional tarot suits of cups, swords, pentacles, and wands, the Vibrating Tarot suits are rope, lube, impact implements, and butt plugs. Many cards feature legendary sex toys, like a womanizer on the Hermit card and a rabbit vibe on the Fool card. If you're thinking, wow, what an amazing idea for a tarot deck, I agree. And what's also amazing is the story of how this idea began percolating in Frank's mind.
It happened almost 10 years ago now, in February of 2014. There was a fire at my apartment building. I became homeless for a short period of time, and the amount of worldly possessions I had to my name could fit into one small box. Looking into that box in the very early days after the fire, after you go out there and buy a new pair of pants and a toothbrush, I found myself thinking, okay, what can I, what used to be something normal in my life? What could I buy that bring me a little bit of comfort, something that can distract me, something that'll make me feel normal again? And it was a tarot deck, first and foremost, and a magic wand. And yeah, I think with all the certainty in the world, that was when this project found its first connected dots. That had to have been when it wormed its way into my brain on a subconscious level.
Years later, Frank had a dream in which the chorus vibrator by WeVibe was floating in the sky on the lover's card from a tarot deck.
Dream work is an important part of my creative process, and it was during a time when I was sort of half falling asleep, half awake, that this idea came to me, and that's when I got up and wrote it down, and it just all sort of went from there. It was like a heartbeat. It was like boom. The first boom was like the clicking of this idea, and then the following boom after that was the fact that, okay, if this idea is going to take off, the magic wand needs to be present somewhere in the deck. And as soon as that hit me, I knew I would put it on the world card. There are 90 cards in this tarot deck, and each product needs to find its way onto a card for some reason. The reason behind all of my decisions are lengthy, and I'll find it difficult to fit all of my explanations into the little guidebook that'll come with this tarot deck. But there is a lot of depth there. In terms of the magic wand, what the world card really resembles is the result of all of your hard work, because that's what the tarot deck is, and that's what we experience in life so often is, moving around this wheel. We have ups and we have downs. We're constantly being swung around in different areas of our lives. You can't go any higher than what is achieved by obtaining the world card. All of your steps have led you to that direction and to that accomplishment. And when we find ourselves at the highest point of this circle and there's nowhere else to go, what happens is we start to circle back around and start the cycle again. That's what I found to be true about the magic wand, is that with all these different products, there's so many of them nowadays, the one that sort of always seems to reside at the very top of everyone's lists is the magic wand. It's sort of that bedrock that everything else stands upon. And that's what I wanted to represent by its placement on the world card in the Vibrating Tarot deck.
I think many of you listening would probably agree with me when I say I don't think there's necessarily any contradiction in combining sex with something often seen as sacred or spiritual, like tarot. But Frank told me they've received some pushback about this intersection from the tarot community.
I have to say, this project is not embraced by absolutely everyone out there. So that's been an eye-opener for me, really. I remember there was once somebody who said back to me in a comment, just because somebody might be sex positive doesn't mean that they agree with what you're doing with the tarot deck. I've never approached it from an immature or jokey way. I've never been crass, although people might have been crass to me and saying, what are your real intentions when developing this tarot deck? And I think to myself, my real intentions, how could that be misconstrued? But in this world, it can be. I believe in the cross section between the erotic and the esoteric. It's been an area of which I've focused on for a while now, and I believe that there's tremendous ground to uncover at these crossroads. These are the types of ideas that I want to reveal and to have people start conversations with their friends when they take a look at this tarot deck. The bottom line is that it starts conversations, and it'll start all kinds of different conversations, and that's the whole point.
Unfortunately, one of the realities of making sex-adjacent art is that it's too often censored or sidelined because it's lumped in with porn and judged as immoral or inappropriate. Laws like Sesta Fosta in the United States, which were ostensibly created to cut down on sex trafficking, affect everyone who puts sexy stuff online, whether they're making porn, erotic art, or something in the blurry continuum between the two. It's the reason so many sex workers and sex-positive artists have been banned or shadow banned by the social media platforms they rely on to earn a living. The internet was once seen as a wild west of sexual expression, a place where you could be as filthy and out there as you wanted. But nowadays, the people who make sexy content have fewer and fewer places they can share it. And even when they can share it, they still face shaming and harassment from random puritanical people online who think anything sexy is sinful or dangerous.
I think sometimes living in the sex positive ecosphere of sex positive blogging and Instagrams and TikToks, like I'm in a bubble that the algorithm is always feeding me sex positive content. But when artists who didn't usually make sex positive content decided to make their first magic wand piece or other sex positive pieces, hearing that they had had some backlash from their community was surprising to me, because in my mind, I was like, most of us are having sex. We were all created from somebody having sex, and it's just such a normal part of life. And even if you're not into partnered sex, there's many people that are exploring solo pleasure and all the health benefits, that thinking of this as something shameful and taboo. I know that that's the case in mainstream media, but when it comes to art and expression, sexuality has always been a part of art. I recently went to an art museum, I don't remember the name, in Paris, and you're seeing all the bare breasts and penises and, the figures in marble that are laid back and, just barely covered and, exposed. And the beauty of the human body and the beauty of our pleasure has always been a part of the discourse to varying extents. And it's like our society and culture just goes through phases of acceptance and celebration, and then shutting it down in panic and ostracizing it.
I have a confession to make. I've been telling you about all these pieces of magic wand art, and I really do love all of them, but I definitely have a favorite. It's actually the main reason I wanted to do an episode about art for this series in the first place. When I was working on this episode and friends would ask what I was up to, I would say, I've been doing some research on this project called hysterical literature. Have you heard of it? In most cases, they would rack their brain and say, no, I don't think so. So then I would explain, it's that viral video series where a woman sits at a table in front of a black background and reads aloud from a book while someone's holding a magic wand on her under the table. So she's kind of distracted and has to struggle to continue reading. Invariably, everyone I told this to would be like, oh yeah, I remember that. The filmmaker who created the series, Clayton Cubitt, has said that it aimed to examine, quote, the battle between the mind and the body, and that it, quote, explores the cultural contrast between art and sex, particularly how people react to the mixture of the two. I first saw the series when it came out in 2012, and while all the videos are captivating, the first one's probably my favorite, and has nearly 30 million views on YouTube at the time that I'm writing this. It's the one starring the iconic porn performer and sex columnist, Stoya.
Hi, I'm Stoya. I was a career pornographer for about a decade and a half. I also participated in a lot of erotic and eroticism adjacent art.
I was really curious to hear how Stoya got involved in Clayton's project and how the project came to be in the first place. And it turns out she played a key role in shaping it from the start.
I absolutely adore Clayton. I consider him a dear friend. We've collaborated together many times. But I was at this party and he was explaining to me that he was searching for a more intimate portrait. And he had tried these long portraits where it's a video camera on a tripod and the subject does not move, but the frame is running for, a minute, 2 minutes, and you do see the subject go through several states. At first, they are posed for a photograph, but then their demeanor changes, emotions shift, the small details of their facial expression and all that kind of stuff shift. Then he showed me this video that he had done with a fellow porn performer, and she was reclined on something. It was kind of a sea of black behind her, and he was holding the magic wand and interviewing her while there was this tension between her and the distraction of the magic wand, and also trying to pay attention to his questions and answer them. And he showed me that, and I was like, man, that's a lot of real patriarchal male gaze. Not for me. And then he reached out later and said, okay, new plan. The woman is seated at a table. The table is covered. Under the table is an assistant, female, gender of your choosing, whatever, unseen. The camera is at eye level, and the intellectual tension, mental tension, whatever you want to call it, comes from you reading a book of your own choosing. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. I mean, a little derivative of Andy Warhol's The Blowjob, which I've already done in a music video, but happy to revisit the theme again.
If you haven't seen Warhol's Blowjob, by the way, it's a silent film from 1964 that focuses on the face of a guy who's receiving oral sex. I totally agree with Stoya that it feels like the precursor to hysterical literature. It also feels like the precursor to another sexy video series I love, Beautiful Agony, a subscription porn site where participants film themselves from the shoulders up while they're having an orgasm. There's something so interesting about that tension between the seen and the unseen, and hysterical literature nailed that dynamic. Funnily enough, even though the magic wand was an important component of the series, Stoya's actually not a fan.
I'm not particularly into vibrators, and specifically not into the magic wand because there's no emotional orgasm. It's just a physical sensation that happens whether you sort of agree to it internally or not. Obviously, there's consent in, yes, I will allow this vibrator to be applied to my vulva and clitoris, but it's not an orgasm in which my soul is involved. It is purely physical. The physical pleasure is there. Am I emotionally connected to it? Not at all. However, I'm emotionally connected to the anonymous person under the table. I am emotionally connected to the piece of writing that I am reading, and I am emotionally connected to Clayton the artist. I'm also emotionally connected to the camera itself and the audience that will eventually lie on the other side of it. My stance was very, look, you like to use this thing a lot. I don't particularly like it, but I feel it is integral to the project. And so you just go to town and do what you think is going to work best. Sorry, I'm realizing you're doing a series honoring this piece of sex equipment, and I'm like, I actually have an antagonistic relationship with this particular object.
Stoya's hysterical literature video is very worth a watch if you haven't seen it, or even if you just haven't seen it for a while. In it, Stoya sits amid darkness, introduces herself, and reads aloud from a book called Necrophilia Variations by Supervert, a morbid and poetic scene about a kiss at a party. Her voice is steady and sure at first, intermingling with the low, ominous hum in the background that any vibrator aficionado could identify as the magic wand. As the video goes on, though, Stoya starts to read more haltingly, occasionally stumbling on her words, giggling, visibly trembling. She reads for 4 whole minutes before moaning for the first time. By the 6-minute mark, she stops trying to struggle her way through the text, puts the book down, and grins and laughs through what looks like a long, shuddering orgasm. Once she can catch her breath and open her eyes again, she looks into the camera with a radiant, unguarded smile and concludes the scene by saying, "Hi, I'm Stoya, and that was Supervert's Necrophilia Variations." I remember watching this scene and Beautiful Agony and Warhol's Blowjob and thinking about how astonishing it is that sometimes indirect sexiness is paradoxically hotter than the more direct kind. Personally, I get more turned on watching people's faces and hearing their noises when they come than watching their genitals. There's something so intriguing about not being able to see what's going on under the table. Again, though, the thing about porny art or artsy porn is that while it might be praised in the art world for its boldness, it might just as easily be written off as crass or vulgar. And likewise, it might rack up millions of views from people who find it hot, but the artists making it might also be penalized by algorithms, payment processors, or even law enforcement for making something that's seen as obscene.
The way that the internet and policymakers try to carve things up does not encompass the sort of messiness and fluidity of life. I think for some people, the conversation about what is art and what is porn and can the two co-occur moved forward, but no further past where it had been at other points in history. And the best definition of porn legally is devoid of artistic educational merit, but the vast majority of things that are shut out of platforms like Instagram, Patreon, all that kind of thing are not devoid of artistic, educational, or journalistic merit. They are depicting sexuality in ways that people can learn from, or sexuality in ways that make a statement about humanity, because remember, art is just about humanity, or depicting sex in a way that is capturing something about sex as it occurs today. So we're just in this like messy, sloppy disaster, and anytime someone tries to carve out part of it, it's through distancing themselves from porn.
I think hysterical literature did a lot to open up cultural dialogues about sex and art, which was one of its creator Clayton Cubitt's aims in making it. But I wondered how participating in hysterical literature had affected Stoya herself. She told me one of the places it comes up a lot now is actually on dating apps.
I know where I live in a small European city, and half of the people on field know me from hysterical literature. Did not see that coming. It makes things kind of awkward. Oh, you've already seen me orgasm. They're very complimentary. I mean, also the people I'm talking about it with are on field and hoping to get in my pants. I'm also hoping to get in their pants, so of course they're complimentary. Oh, you're the girl with the library orgasm. And I'm like, no, you're thinking of the, what's her name? The girl who did the camming from her university library. And they're like, no, the black and white and the table. And I'm like, oh, yeah, hysterical literature. And they're like, book orgasm. And I'm like, hysterical literature. And they're like, book orgasm. And I'm like, it's a fucking work of art. It was in the goddamn Massachusetts MoMA. I have one last thing I want to say about hysterical literature. It is absolutely my favorite video work that I have participated in, including those I have created myself. I am so proud of it to this day. It is worth half of the people I match with on field already knowing what I look like when I have an orgasm.
Art about sex, or about sex toys, serves an important purpose for us emotionally, but also politically. Sexuality can be a huge part of how we connect with other human beings, and a major element of how we define and understand ourselves and our place in the world. So it makes sense that we've made art about sex for as long as art has existed. And it also makes sense that people who fear or reject sex positivity would push back against art that shows us how sex can be beautiful, life-affirming, and liberating. As I made this episode, I started to wonder if maybe I should make a piece of art about the magic wand. Aside from a podcast miniseries, that is. I'm a singer-songwriter when I'm not making sex media, and I thought maybe I'd write a song about the wand. But then I realized I already kind of had. Last year, an online songwriters group I'm in selected the word trick as their weekly prompt, and I wrote a bluesy love song about a magician, which I'll leave you with at the end here. See if you catch the reference to our favorite legendary vibrator. In the next episode, we'll chat about why the magic wand is so important to so many queer and trans people, and how its genderlessness makes it nearly universal. Until then, keep on making magic.
You pulled a white rabbit right out of your hat, and I thought, well, damn it, how did you do that? Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me. You don't wear jeans, 'cause you never dress down. You're wearing a top hat and tux all the town. Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me. Look so deep into my eyes till I am hopelessly hypnotized. I'll do anything you say, even cluck like a chicken and lay an egg. Oh, I wanna know, if we went on a date, would you use your wand on me or make your escape? Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me. You make me gasp, you make me laugh. You saw me slowly right in half. Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me. Tell me all your secrets, ruin every trick. I wanna know the man inside and know what makes you tick. Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me. Baby, you're magic. Baby, you're magic to me.
Making Magic is hosted and co-produced by me, Kate Sloan, edited and co-produced by Jamie Pityinger, and made possible by the generous support of Vibratex, with art by Addison Finch. Special thanks to my guests for this episode, Addison Finch, Carly S., Lorrae Bradbury, Frank Lawrence, and Stoya. You can find links to their work in the show notes.